Welcome back, everyone. Today, we continue our journey through Annu Pandey's powerful book, Keeping Faith Alive, as we explore Chapter 15, Women in Religious Narratives. This chapter invites us to reflect on the experience of women throughout religious history and to consider how spiritual teachings have sometimes been interpreted in ways that brought healing and other times pain. We'll discuss the historical role of women in faith, the difficult question of suffering and how certain beliefs have influenced women's identity, self worth, and relationship with God. We'll also explore an important part of recovery after spiritual abuse, learning how to reconnect with faith without being overwhelmed by fear, shame, or emotional triggers. Most importantly, we'll discuss how it's possible to rediscover a healthy, life-giving spirituality built on trust, compassion, and personal freedom. This is a thoughtful conversation about faith, history, healing, and hope. Let's begin. Hi, Anu.
I'm good, Siddharth. Okay, before we start, I have a little disclaimer to put. So we have done so many podcasts together, Siddharth, but I had been never this nervous before because today I'm going to talk about something very sensitive. Being a woman myself, I'm going to talk about something that is highly related to women, and
Wow.
I am um, trauma-informed psychologist, a trauma-informed author, trauma-informed writer.
Mm,
So I always intend that whatever I speak or
mm,
write or create, it should always validate and make the survivors feel heard,
cool.
validated. So I never intend to say anything or write anything that makes anyone feel invalidated in their journey
Mm,
of healing or about the wounds that they are carrying from the trauma or abuse they have been through, especially women. And I also make sure that my language is totally trauma informed.
mm,
So I always cross check whenever I'm going to speak or write to make sure that each and every word is trauma informed so that nobody gets hurt. Nobody ever thinks that I'm invalidating their pain or
mm,
suffering,
mm.
trying to judge them like that. So I try to show my unconditional positive regard to every survivor that I come across in any way, whether they are my client, my followers, my listeners, anyone. Right now, we are going to talk about something in which I cannot just use the scientific knowledge that I have. I might have to
Mm.
use my theological knowledge as well, and that's why I'm little worried today. And speaking on religious topics, I mostly try to keep the conversation around the scientific facts.
Okay.
But today I might
Okay.
be using theology, and since I am a Hindu, the Vedic literature is all I know. So I'm not very versed with the scriptures of other religions, so I might have to use examples or logics from my scriptures. So if at any
Okay.
point any female listener feels judged or invalidated, I just want you to know that it was never intentional, and I will try my best to put forward any knowledge that I have from the theology that I know, the scriptures that I know. But anything that hurts anyone, it was never intended. I would always want all the survivors to always feel validated and emotionally safe around me.
Wow. That's powerful. All right, Anu. How have historical religious narratives shaped society's understanding of the role and value of women throughout history?
In any culture, in any society, you will see that the expectation that that particular culture or that particular society has from women, it is very highly influenced with the religious narratives. If you know what I mean, if you are a woman visiting Afghanistan, you have to be a certain way if you want to be safe
Mm,
there. If you are in a
that's true.
Pakistan, you have to be a certain way. If you are in India, even then you have to be a certain way. If you are visiting America or UK, you will have you will feel different kinds of rights, or you, if you act in a certain way, people will not look at you. So we always try to go with the norms of a given culture, which proves that what a society expects from a woman, whether that woman is not, even if that woman is not from their culture, if a woman is there in a given society, even a given place, people would always expect her to
Mm,
act in a way that is norm over there, and the norms are always influenced with the religious narratives. So because of that, it can have positive influences as well as negative influences. Let's talk about the positive influences first, which would include that in history, in all scriptures, women have been portrayed as spiritually significant, wise, courageous, compassionate. So if someone takes that into the context, they would see women like that. Female saints have been there, prophets have been there, teachers, reformers, and mystics have been there in all cultures. And faith traditions also often emphasize women's moral and spiritual worth. So these are the positive influences of the effect of the religious narratives on the culture of a given society. Now, if we talk about the negative influences, because of the confirmation bias, certain stories become selectively emphasized. Let's say I am already carrying a belief about women in general. So I have my scriptures and there are a lot of stories in that. But I will selectively emphasize and try to use those stories in my narratives. Let's say if I'm a preacher, during my lectures, I would try to put those stories in my lectures which would justify what I already believe about women. That is called as confirmation bias in psychology. So even I have seen a lot of preachers do that. See, in every scripture there are original verses which are same in all the publications, which originally comes from that time when the scripture was written originally. But now over the time different people have written different purports to every scripture. Now the purport, it contains the personal interpretation of a given text. So whoever is writing that purport, or whoever is using that purport and text to deliver a lecture for the preaching purpose, they would always include their perception of women, of situation, of everything. And if of course they have a choice, whatever the story they want to use, they would use those stories that justify what they already believe or what they want to propagate ahead in other people also. So this is the negative influence. If there is someone who has a patriarchal or misogynist mindset, or who thinks that it's very important to be very strict towards children, it's not okay to be lenient, to love and have a good connection with children, or someone who personally doesn't have a good relationship with their parents or their wife or with their children, they would try to find a story that justifies this behavior, so that everybody can say, oh, it's written in the scriptures, so whatever this person is doing, that must be right. So this is one of the negative influences. The other ones is women's roles narrowed to obedience, caring, giving and submission. See, in olden times everything was difficult. The way society operated, the political systems, the law enforcement, gender roles, everything was different. Women didn't go outside to work because there were no jobs. Even if someone wanted,
Mm.
if even if somebody's husband or parents allowed, there were no jobs, so nobody was working, and it was men's primary duty to provide and protect their families. They would do it even if it required taking their sacrificing their own lives, they would do that. So a lot of stories that we hear today, they have a historical context that we should always remember. But if somebody takes a story from, let's say, Satyug, or from Dwapar Yuga or Treta Yuga, at the time where everything was different, societal expectations were different, general roles were different, the way society operated, the level of knowledge, the scientific discoveries, everything was different, and try to use it and apply it in given context, that is one of the negative influences. For example, some preachers justify child marriage in olden times, like 5,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago. People didn't know about the how to keep about the health concerns of a woman's reproductive system. And if it's okay for a child to reproduce, a child to become pregnant, or how much time is it required for a woman to recover after having a baby so that she can again become pregnant. So in olden times, parents would give away their daughters, 11 years old daughter, 13 years old daughter, in marriage, and then she would keep on producing babies over and over until she dies, because at that time they lacked knowledge. They didn't know, there was no medical science. Now some preachers would try to take that and apply it in today's time. It's okay to get a girl married at 13 years, it's okay if she becomes a grandmother at 30. So this is wrong. This is negative influence
Mm.
of taking religious narratives and applying it out of the context. And I'm not saying anyone who has done that or who is doing that is doing it intentionally because they want to harm society or they want to harm women, but that's how maybe they have this confirmation bias or leadership bias, that just because someone senior told me that, so it has to be true, I have to blindly follow that, or because there is a story in my scriptures which says this, it means it's God's words and God's commandment that this is how it should be. No, it shouldn't be like that. Also in the historical stories, we often see that males were the leaders everywhere, in spiritual communities, in politics, in everywhere. So male leadership often became viewed as divinely ordained, but it was rather culturally influenced. At that time, women were not educated, they were not empowered, there was not a lot of protection for women. For example, men would move in groups, they would be on horses and all that. There were no proper lights, there were no street lights, there were no proper roads, no means of communication, no transportation. It was safer for men to endure such hardships and travel and go to work and do these things. But now it's everything is same for men and women. If I want protection, I'll go to police. If you want protection, you'll go to police. Nobody is now fighting the goons and all that. It's not happening now. Nobody takes out a sword and runs on a horse and does that. So in those time things were different, gender roles were different, expectations, also bodily strength. Women can be pregnant, women can be lactating, they could be carrying a small child with them. There were no helps like that in those times, so things were different. That's why male were leaders in every area of the life. So some people instead of understanding that its story is culturally influenced, that's why the man was the leader and women could not be leaders. But people view it as divinely ordained rules, that just because a story is mentioned in the scriptures, it has to be a divine order. So this is
Mm.
the negative influence. So religion and culture have influenced one another always. I'm not talking about spirituality. Spirituality is a personal relationship with God. When I say religion, I mean the ritual, the culture, the beliefs, the festival, the tradition, the clothes we wear, the food we eat, everything, that the religion, it constitutes a religion. The spirituality, when you combine it with the culture and everything else, then it becomes religion. So religion has always been influenced with the culture, and culture has always been influenced with the religion. So cultural biases often become embedded in religious interpretation. So, something written in my scripture, it is written there because in that particular time, it was a part of the culture. That's why they did it. It's not that now in today's time, it's a commandment and everybody has to do that. So, not every historical teaching reflects God's idea. So, the story of women in religion is not only one story, it contains both empowerment as well as oppression. So, if there have been women who were highly empowered, if everybody knows about Durga, Kali, she married whom she wanted to marry. She went against her own family, she went against her own father, and when her father disrespected her husband, she killed herself, and then she was reborn. So there are so many other stories when Shri Krishna's one of the wife, she didn't want it to marry the boy. Her father was forcing her to marry, so she left him, she married Krishna. So there were empowered women also. But when somebody is trying to justify oppression, they would always choose a story
Mm.
that has oppression in it. So it's confirmation bias, the belief that I'm already caring about women, I will try to reinforce by choosing, selectively choosing stories. So that's what I said, select certain stories become selectively emphasized, and that is one of the negative influences.
All right, I'll get to this comment question here quickly. It's a two-part here. The first part is this is from Reshchitan. Hi, Anu. In medieval times, women were once worshipped as goddess, the welcoming symbol of a home. But as generational gap began, when women started to get independent, then they were considered a threat. And then the next part of the question is, how do you see women as being independent in today's world?
Okay, so as I mentioned, that it's because of the how society operated in those times.
Okay.
In today's time, our society is in a way that women can be independent. There are so many things for us. Anyone who is an adult has got the rights. In olden times, there was no such thing. There were frequent
Mm,
wars. We
mm,
needed to stay together, we needed groups. In today's time, we don't even need a large families, because in olden times, men of the house protected us, or king
mm,
protected us. But now it's police, it's law enforcement that protects us from people of our country, and then army protects us from the surrounding countries. Everything is different now. It's not that we can be attacked anytime, so we have to stick together. Even if the abuse is happening inside the family, structure has changed. We have education now. We have so many discoveries have happened, so we have so many things, like if a woman wants to go to work, she can make arrangements for her children. Her child will be in school for few hours, then she can put the child in a day boarding, or someone can look after the child. Or she does not needs to do everything manually at home. In the olden times, men and women used to do everything manually. Now we have machines for everything.
mm.
So we have a lot of time, and we can use it to make the society better, to make our financial condition better, to grow ourselves, and to make a better future for our children. So the structure of the society is what has basically changed, and because of that, women are more independent now, and the laws are there, the rights are there, which did not on papers did not officially did not existed. Now we have human rights, now we have women's right, and we have constitution. So all of this facilitates a much better life, in which we can pursue individualism in this current time.
Awesome. When studying early religious teachings, how can we distinguish between timeless spiritual principles and cultural practices that reflected the era in which they were they were written?
Hmm. So, not everything recorded in sacred texts was intended as a universal command. So, if somebody tries to manipulate you, if you are a woman listening to this and somebody tries to manipulate you or justify their mistreatment towards you, or if you are a man and another man or someone else is trying to manipulate you into not treating your partner, your daughter, your mother, or other women in your life, or other people in your life, even with respect and with dignity and love and care, you must always ask these questions to yourself. What is the core spiritual principles? Let's say they take a verse from the scriptures and try to manipulate you into thinking that women should not be treated equally, feminism is dangerous, or anything like not just about females, about anyone. Like somebody tries to manipulate you into thinking that it's not very good thing to have a very loving close relationship with your children. You should be very detached and you should be focused on spirituality all the time, and do not waste a lot of time with your children because they are all illusion and all that. Anything. If somebody tries to teach you spiritually something that feels off, ask yourself, what is the core spiritual principle in this given teaching or in this given verse? If this teaching is based on love, justice, humility, human dignity, compassion. If it's based on this, then the teaching is for everybody's good. Otherwise, if the teaching is based on hatred for another gender or another religion or another caste, or for injustice towards someone who is weaker than you, whether it's gender, someone in age, someone in caste, if it promotes cruelty, if it um, makes you more arrogant, if it dehumanizes the problems of someone who is suffering, then it's not a spiritual teaching. A lot of spiritual abusers preach in a way in which it starts to feel like it's not very important to have love, to think of justice, to have compassion, to have humility, to have to think about human dignity. You just have to think about God all the time and do the services, and rest of these things will be taken care of. No, anyone who is practicing or making you practice spirituality in a way which requires you to hate, to cause or justify injustice, or to promote cruelty or arrogance, or dehumanize other people's suffering, it's not spirituality. You are being spiritually manipulated. So this is how you distinguish between the timeless spiritual principles and cultural practices that reflected the era. If a story includes these things, in which there was hatred, injustice, cruelty, arrogance, dehumanization, it could have something to do with the cultural practices of that area in that particular time. And it is not a timeless spiritual principle. So do not just blindly copy everything that was done by someone historically, even if that story is mentioned in the scriptures, because that may not have to do anything with the spirituality. It was just some imperfect human being using their free will to do what they wanted to do. And maybe there is no spiritual the only spiritual message where what we can understand here is that we shouldn't be doing that, because that's not right. That's not what spirituality tells us. So but people would, as I said, because of several biases, conformity biases, what I'm already believing, I will try to find a story that justifies that. Authority bias, just because a leader, spiritual leader said that, so I would blindly follow that. A lot of terrorists do that. They are manipulated into thinking that killing people of other religion is good for your spiritual life. That's
Mm,
what their spiritual leaders tell them. Group bias in cults, if a new member enters a cult, they see that everybody has same beliefs, so I have to think like them to be accepted, to be validated by them. So the group thinking, it's called as group thinking, where everyone in the group thinks the same way. So these things, if you are at a point where there is a religious teaching which is causing cognitive dissonance in you, you're like, I had this belief, but this new spiritual knowledge, this teaching that has come, the knowledge that is coming with this spiritual teaching, it's making me uncomfortable because it does not align with the values that I already carried. Like, I should be compassionate to everyone irrespective of their religion, but my spiritual leader just told me that I should be hating people from other religion. So I will feel cognitive dissonance, I will have a deep feelings of discomfort. So try to sit with that discomfort. If you try to run away from that discomfort, you would ignore, um, you would try to impulsively accept this knowledge. Oh, just because everyone in the group believes that, just because my leader told me, so I should be hating them. I will not waste my time and energy for that. No, don't do that. If you're feeling cognitive dissonance, sit with this dissonance. Try to evaluate both these informations and see which one makes you feel, which one makes you feel more aligned with with your values, which of these information aligns with your values, which you think is right. Because you should not disconnect yourself from your soul. Do not get disconnected from yourself just to accept a teaching that you don't understand. So it's very important to understand these things. So try to understand, when a story is being told to you, when a context is being given to you, what reflects the historical context here. The clothing, social customs, gender roles, political systems. family structures. See, these things, are they related? Because are they appearing like this because they are from a different time or from a different place? So these are not spiritual things, these are just cultural things, and I must see them as they are. So selective interpretation can be very dangerous. It's important to sit with whatever new information comes up to you, and if it's, especially if it's causing any discomfort you, and also look for consistency. See if this teaching aligns with broader themes of compassion and justice. It's very important. There's only one thing can give a lot of clarity. If it does not aligns with the broader principles of compassion and justice, there could be something wrong. Does it reflects God's character throughout the scripture, or this is just in this happening in this situation only? So violence, injustice, betrayal, oppression, prejudice. Maybe these are just the description given in this particular story, and they are not the prescription. A lot of time while reading scriptures, people see description and try to accept this as prescription. Just because it happened at one point doesn't mean that we all have to do that. Just because women were oppressed or treated as objects, they were given in marriages. When somebody lost a war, they would give a woman. Somebody was angry at a man was angry at another woman, they would just go and kidnap their daughters. Even though some men who were considered very great in the history, they did those things. So just because they did it that time doesn't mean that we also have to do, or doing that is right. So a timeless principle can remain valid while the cultural expression of that principle changes. So it's very important to and one more thing, it's also very important to understand the genre of the writing, whether it was a poetry, because a lot of time metaphors are used in poetry. So see what you're reading, if it's a poetry, if it's a parable, if it's a historical narration, or if it's a legal text. So, and also understand how these are interpreted. It's not that you are going to interpret every text in the same way, like literally. Especially the things which are written in poetry, there could be a lot of metaphors. So it's very important to understand any text with a lot of mindfulness and using your critical thinking.
Many women have experienced suffering while being told it was spiritually necessary. How can we approach the question, did God approve of women's suffering, or have some teachings been misunderstood or misapplied?
A lot of stories we hear where women had to suffer a lot, and it doesn't necessarily means that God required them to suffer. We have, everybody has own karmic um, records. Also, we all have been given free will.
Mm.
So if someone is using their free will to abuse me, to bully me, to cause me violence or any mistreatment, it's not because God is allowing them or telling them to do so. It's because God has given free will to everyone. God has given me free will to fight back or to report them. Similarly, God has given them free will. So as per everybody's consciousness, as per everybody's intelligence, people use their free will. So if somebody is abusing me, it's because they are using their free will. It's not because God requires me to suffer. A lot of time in toxic faith system, people are told that it's important to suffer, it sanctifies you. It's not true. So we have to understand this important distinction that suffering does exist. In Vedic philosophy, we call this world as Dukhalam Shashvatam, which means house of sorrows, because in this world there is not a single living person who does not have any problems or any sorrows and any miseries in their life. It's the rule of this planet. Anybody who's born here will have problems, will have miseries, will have sufferings. And sufferings can be of different types. Suffering that comes from body, that comes from other living beings around us, including humans and animals. Suffering that we endure because of the atmosphere. Like right now, I am sweating because I don't have AC in this room and it's very hot and I have to tolerate because I want to do this podcast. So There are national calamities. You would say someone who is living
mm,
very happily nicely in their house, and they have everything. They have a loving partner, nice children, and good relationship and good job, but then earthquake comes and everything gets destroyed. So nobody is
mm,
untouched with from miseries in this material world. So sufferings do exist. We have to understand these things. Life does include suffering, but it's not that suffering is required to grow spiritually. Whatever sufferings are there, it's okay, they are there. If we become spiritually elevated, if we have a faith, and if we are practicing in a faith system, it helps us endure them. It helps us accept them and rebound in more positive ways and keep growing in spite of all these problems. So spirituality does, of course, helps deal with the problems of the life. But glorifying suffering is a different thing.
mm,
Glorifying sufferings is not okay. Enduring abuse is not same as spiritual growth. Just because someone is in a lot of problem, they are being abused, they are always sick, it's not because they are going through a spiritual growth or something. It also doesn't means that they are not trying hard in their spiritual life. It has nothing to do with your spiritual life. You are suffering because sufferings are there for everyone. So being harmed is not inherently holy. Sometimes in spiritually harmful environments, when someone reports an abusive incident by a leader, by another member, or when women report being abused by their husbands, especially this one, women reporting being abused by their husband, they are told to tolerate, to obey more, to pray more. So it's not
mm,
that they are giving a remedy. They just don't want to invest their energy and their emotion, and they just try to sweep it under the rug by saying that you should pray more, or it's good for you. You are suffering so that now you will be sanctified and God will be happy. All this is wrong. Enduring abuse is not same as spiritual growth. Being harmed is not inherently holy. It's not. It may have nothing, your sufferings may have nothing to do with your spiritual practices or your spiritual growth in your current life. So there are a lot of common misconceptions in such environments, like you should stay because suffering will sanctify you. Whether we are talking about staying in a spiritually harmful marriage, domestic abuse, or in cult that is spiritually harmful, that is abusive, people are told to stay because if you stay, if you suffer more, it will sanctify you, it will purify you. So this is one of the major misconceptions. And forgiving without accountability, it's also very common in spiritually harmful environments. People are told to forgive without the person who mistreated them is taking an accountability or is even seeking for forgiveness. People are told to prematurely forgive the person who has offended them, who has harmed them. It never does any good to the person
mm,
forgiving. You should forgive only when you're ready, when you don't feel like it's going to harm you more. If you forgive someone who hasn't even taken the accountability yet, who has never said sorry, and who sometimes I have seen people forced to forgive someone who continues, who's still hurting them, who's still harming them. Oh, you should forgive them because you are a spiritual person. You have to grow spiritually. You have to be the bigger person. So forgive them. Oh, they haven't even stopped abusing me. How can I forgive them? If I forgive them, I'm betraying myself. That would be self betrayal. So this is a common misconception that is used a lot in spiritual harmful environment.
mm,
And submitting regardless of harm, this particular tip is given a lot to women in um, harmful church environments, harmful cults, harmful spiritual environments. Even if your parents, even if your husband is harmful and they are even if they are causing violence, you should submit them because that's your duty. It's duty of children to submit to their parents. It's duty of women to submit to their husbands. So existence of suffering does not automatically means that God approves of it. It's just some bad people using their free will to cause you harm. And you have all the rights to stand up to that abuse, to report that abuse, to distance yourself from that person, to have boundaries, to leave them, and to not forgive them unless you want to.
How have certain interpretations of religious texts been used to justify inequality, control, or silence towards women? And how can those interpretations be challenged responsibly? Sorry.
So that, yeah, the religious text can be used either to liberate people or to control them. Originally, all the texts were written so that they can be used by people to liberate themselves. And a lot of leaders, spiritual leaders and preachers, also aim towards it, who are actually in love with God, who are actually growing spiritually. They want these texts to be used by people to liberate themselves. But on the other hand, we have got a lot of people who are spiritual abusers, who are religious abusers, who are narcissistic, psychopathic, who are toxic, who had been using these texts to control other people and help their allies to control their children, their wives, and all that. So both of these people exist. Now, how why people, so the common patterns are selective interpretation that we discussed already, authority without accountability, and spiritual control. Now, if we talk about this selective interpretation, why people selectively interpret, let's say there is a story in which the obedience of a wife for her husband is emphasized, but there is also justice and mutual respect. Now, someone with a patriarchal mindset, they would selectively emphasize on the obedience part, and they will not even mention that part in which there was mention of the justice and mutual respect, mutual love, and mutual care of husband and wife for each other. To give away the message, it's mandatory for women to be obedient to their husbands and leaving the rest. So half knowledge can be very dangerous. And why people selectively interpret or selectively emphasize? Because of the lens that they are carrying. People see, everyone in this world sees everything through a lens that we carry, and we can have different lenses we could be carrying with ourselves depending upon our upbringing, our gender, our relations, our traditions, our culture, our education, political beliefs that I am carrying, personal experiences that I have been through, or the social position where I stand. On the basis of that, I have a lens through which I would try to see the things. And that's why I would select that part only which justifies, which I already believe on the basis of all these things that I just listed. For example, I have a friend who grew up in a neighborhood where there was one Muslim family, one or two Muslim families who were very notorious, and they made it very difficult for every Hindu family living in that neighborhood. So now that friend of mine, she has such a strong belief that every Muslim is a bad person. Of course, there are a lot of terrorist groups, and all of the terrorist groups are Muslims. So there are a lot of bad Muslims in this world, but there are nice people also. I have a childhood friend. She is Muslim, and she is the sweetest, one of the sweetest girl I know. So but it created a bias for her because of, she always saw them causing trouble for everyone on the basis of the religion. They created a lot of trouble, but only to the Hindu neighbors. So she cannot just shake it off her. She cannot just ignore that
Mm,
thing that she has observed all her life. Similarly, one can have a biased lens because of gender. Being a girl, I have always, all the moments when I was uh, like eve teased, or I when I was traveling, I was inappropriately touched, it was always a man. I was never inappropriately touched or eve teased by a woman. So if somebody asks me, uh, I would always say, although I would never say all men, but it's always men. Any
mm,
girl would say, any girl, if you meet, I am 45 years old, and there have been countless number of times when I was traveling in public transportation and I was touched inappropriately. But if I try to make a boy or a man understand this thing, it would be very difficult for him. Let's say if I try to explain this thing to my husband, he may not completely believe me because no man touched him
mm,
inappropriately. So being a woman, there is something that I've experienced all my life that someone with different gender has not. So it's not difficult for them to see things as I saw. So if I am alone in a bus or in a train, there are very few people. It's obvious for me to be afraid of these people, even though I don't know if they are safe or not. But a man will not be afraid of them. So I have this lens through which I'm seeing these men. Similarly, culture or upbringing, if I was raised to think that girls should always be obedient and submissive and should shrink themselves to make others comfortable, that's how I am going to uh, feel about myself and other women also. If I see a loud woman, I may not like her because she's not the kind of woman that I was taught women should be like. So we all carry different kinds of lens, and then there can also be a lens of trauma. If I was abused by just I showed the told you the example of my friend whose family was abused by Muslim family, so she has a lens of trauma also. So a lot of things are make us do the selective interpretation of the text and the stories coming from the history. That's why people emphasize obedience sometimes, and they would ignore the justice or mutual respect. So this is one of the patterns where texts are used to control rather than to liberate. Another one would be authority without accountability. Leaders are treated as unquestionable in a lot of spiritual communities. And in families also, elders are treated as unquestionable. If the male leader of the family does something, says something, even if it's clearly wrong, everybody is supposed to respect them and obey them and do not question them. So any authority figure, whether it's in family or in a community, if they are seen as untouchable, then this can also lead to use of scriptures to control people. Women discouraged from questioning. If you are a woman in family, in religion, you must not question, you must only obey, and you must always surrender. So giving anyone authority without accountability, whether it's someone with a male gender or it's someone who has highest rank in a congregation or someone who is eldest in a family, we must never give anyone authority without zero accountability. There has to be some accountability. Then the third one is spiritualized control. Disagreement labeled as rebellion. Disagreement is not same as rebellion. And boundaries labeled as selfishness. Everybody has right to have their personal boundaries. Just because I'm having personal boundaries does not mean that I'm selfish, because I too have a limit to tolerate anything. So these are the common patterns that are used that happen when the texts are used to control instead of liberating. So whenever someone tries to do that to you, always examine the context. Always see what is the context of this story, who is telling this story, who are the audience, what are they trying to answer, what was the question or what was the problem that they were trying to solve. Always compare the interpretation. Always try to look up internet and see what other people has to say about this particular interpretation of this given story. Other preachers, other religious leaders, psychologists, psychiatrists, look up the research paper on the same issue. Like women should always be obedient. Do everyone has to say the same thing, or it's just this person saying this? If only one person is saying this, then you have to be careful. Then encourage questioning, not only in others but also in yourself. Ask question. Try to uh, see what are the questions coming up in your mind when somebody is trying to teach you in this way, and sit with those questions and try to find out the answer to those questions. And value historical scholarship also. Anything that happened in the history, how it has been written by different authors, how it has been interpreted, and how it has been understood, try to research on that. It helps you to understand the text in the best possible way so that nobody uses it to harm you. If anybody is doing that, you can understand what is actually happening and you can help yourself. So questioning harmful interpretations is not rebellion. Always remember that. It can be search for truth.
What are the psychological effects on women who grow up believing that obedience, sacrifice, or silence are their primary spiritual responsibilities?
Well, anyone who is raised in an environment, whether it's spiritually abusive or the abuse came from parents or from husband, any woman who was raised in an environment where obedience, sacrifice, or silence were deemed as their primary spiritual responsibilities, they can have a lot of problem,
Mm,
especially with their identity. They would not know who they are, what they want. The possible effects that are seen in such women are chronic guilt. They always feel responsible for other people's emotions because they were told to stay silent, to sacrifice, to obey. So now, anyone, if is upset with them, around them, if anyone is angry, sad, or distressed, they would always feel it their responsibility to do something about it. I have seen people who get upset even if if anybody is upset around them, even if that person is literally harming them, if that person gets upset, they would feel guilty for making them feel upset, for
mm,
speaking up about what is hurting them. Just because I am telling you, you hurt me, and now you get angry because I have told you that what you do hurts me. So now I'm feeling chronic guilt. So the chronic ongoing guilt is seen in such women who are raised on such values. Then they have weak boundaries also, because they were never told to prioritize themselves or their needs. They were always told that others' needs are always more important than yours. Your primary duty is to keep everyone happy, to keep everyone satisfied around you. So they have a lot of difficulty saying no or enforcing their boundaries. As I said initially, they lose their identity. They really don't know who they are, what they want. They know what everyone else around them wants or needs or expects them to be. They know how they're expected to behave or speak or stand or dress up or speak or serve in given environments. They know how they are expected to be by everyone, but they don't know what they want from themselves. They don't know who they are. If you ask them what's your favorite color, what would you like to do when you are free, they don't know anything, because they would always think, what do I do so that they it would make everyone around me happy. And it can be a really painful situation. These people are in such a position, it becomes so difficult to heal them, so difficult
mm,
to reconnect them to themselves. They are so disconnected from themselves, from their needs. Such people also have a lot of anxiety and hypervigilance because they are always thinking that I have to please everyone. Everyone has to be happy with me. So they have a lot of fear of making mistakes. What if I do something that makes someone upset? They have disappoint. They have a fear of disappointing authority figures in family, in spiritual communities. I know a lot of such women who are always so anxious, so afraid, so hyper vigilant about their own actions, their own thoughts, their own emotions. They always want to be a certain way. If you try to insult such women, they would never take stand. They will laugh with you. If you laugh at them, if you insult them, they would laugh so that you stay comfortable. I have literally seen this happening in front of me. We were traveling and we had a female friend, and then there was this male. We were all traveling together, and that male, he wasn't his her husband. He was someone else, and he was repeatedly talking to her in a very insulting way, and she was just laughing because if she gets upset, he would be more upset. So to keep him happy and comfortable, she was laughing at her own disrespect. And there are so many other people that I have noticed who do this. If you try to mock them, insult them, they would smile because they don't want to make you uncomfortable. There is so much fear of disappointing authority figures or anyone, that they are constantly in a state where they have to keep everyone comfortable around them. They are literally burning themselves down to
mm,
keep other people warm. They have a lot of learned helplessness also, because throughout their life they never knew if there was a way out of this. They know that they are uncomfortable, they are distressed, they are tired doing all of this continuous service to everyone around them, but they don't know if there is a way out. there is a way out. So they have learned over the time that there is no way out. So they believe that their personal needs don't matter because they cannot cater to them. If I try to cater to my personal needs, then I would be in trouble, and there is no way out of this situation. I have to be a certain way. They also don't compare themselves to other people who are not living their life like that. They have just accepted that this is how I have to live. These women, I know a lot of such women from my culture. So a lot of women who enter therapy, they don't know anything about themselves. They don't know what they want in a given situation. They come, they would cry, they would be sad, and then they would go away. You cannot ask them, what do you want to achieve? What do you want to? They say, I don't know. I don't know. Do you want to achieve this? No, that would be too frightening. Do you want to do this? No, that would be too frightening. They are so afraid of the change
Hmm.
because they have so deeply believed that this is the only way. That's what we call as learned helplessness. So a lot of women entering therapy, they are so emotionally, mentally, psychologically exhausted from decades of self erasure. They had been erasing themselves over these decades to cater the needs of other people. Healthy spirituality should strengthen a person's humanity, not diminish it. If anyone is trying to preach you in a way that requires you to erase yourself, to shrink yourself, know that that's not spirituality. They are doing something to serve them. They are making you serve their personal needs. That's not spirituality. Spirituality should liberate you, should empower you, should strengthen you, should put you, take you to a better place than where you are actually now.
For women who have experienced spiritual abuse, how can they begin separating their relationship with God from the harmful actions or teachings of people?
So it's very important, first of all, to understand that it's not God, it's
Hmm.
people who are using his name, who are exploiting his teachings, his scriptures, his stories, his name, his existence to to gratify their own senses. They're using your energy, your emotions, your love for God to gratify their senses. So first of all, it's very important to make this distinction that it's not God who's trying to harm you, who has been trying to harm you. God does not intend to harm you. It's these people who had been using his name and who had been exploiting you using his name. So this is the first and most important step. When you do that, after that, try to name what happened. When you name it, you tame it. When something happens to it and we put it in right words, it makes us easy for us to believe what happened, to make sense of it, to sit with it, and to do something about it. So the second thing is name the harm. Acknowledge the spiritual abuse honestly. Try to name what happened, what distressed you, how it affected your life. Then separate God from people. Human authority is imperfect. People who have been spiritually abused, especially in communities, they have a lot of problem separating God from people. Your leader is a human. Your husband is a human. Your parents were human. Any spiritually elevated person in your community was a human. All of them are human. Nobody is God. This is very important to understand. And none of them are directly connected to God, like nobody is God's messenger who is getting direct messages and commands from God and delivering them to you. Because if they were, they wouldn't be harming you. They are just pretending to be God's people so they can enjoy their own senses. They are just trying to do sense gratification. Maybe they are not aware. I'm not saying that everybody who's doing that is doing intentionally. Maybe they are not aware, but they are harming you. If somebody has harmed you, they are not God's messenger. They are not directly connected to God, and most importantly, they are not God. So every time you feel internal hypervigilance, internal scrutiny, if you feel like scrutinizing your thoughts and feelings about a leader or a senior person, your husband, your spiritually elevated parents, anyone who has harmed you in the name of spirituality, you have to every time remind yourself they were not God. They are human, flawed, as flawed as I am, and as flawed as any other human on the earth. All humans are flawed. All humans have limited intelligence, limited capabilities, and limited senses from which we see, perceive, analyze, understand things. Only God is perfect, and they are not God. So, third step is separate God from people. It's very important. It can be very liberating. Then give yourself permission. Allow yourself to question every question that came to your mind during that period. You write down those questions and try to think about them. What could be the answer to these questions? Try to look up the answer to these questions. You will find a lot of stuff on the internet. Then allow yourself to grieve. It's grieving is very important if you have been abused in a relationship, in your community, whatever kind of abuse it is. If you have been spiritually abused, I know when you sit with those feelings, when you were hurt, when you sit with those memories, when you were betrayed, it can be very painful, it can make you very angry, but it's very important to sit with them. If you can't do that alone, it's destabilizing you. Please go to therapy, please go to counseling and do that in the sessions. It's important to sit with the feelings. Whenever you try to do something and a trigger comes up, a flashback comes up, try to sit with that. Try to see what that trigger is trying to tell you. If you are angry, allow yourself to be angry. It's not wrong, it's not sinful to be angry to at
Mhm.
someone that you deemed as respectable at one point. Your leader, your husband, your parents, your anyone. If you're feeling angry at them, allow yourself to feel that. Do not try to suppress the anger because at one point they were your preachers or leaders. They harmed you, so it's okay to be angry. I'm not telling you to go and act on that anger. It's not okay to act on your anger. It's okay to allow yourself to feel that anger, that sadness, that grief, that pain, that betrayal, everything that's coming up. Sit with those emotions, let yourself grieve that. Some days you will feel like I'm not healing at all, I'm just back to square one because I'm still so sad. But it's not like that. It's not a relapse, it's just a trigger. And if you are feeling sad, allow yourself to be sad during that hour or during that day, and it will go away. But if you suppress them, they will still be there, they will always be there disturbing you. So allow yourself to feel anything that comes up, and then allow yourself to heal. Healing from spiritual abuse feels like betrayal to your faith, to your community, to your people from your community. It might feel like, but it is not. When you heal to a certain point, then you will realize you were not betraying anyone. You were not betraying God. You were not betraying your community. You were not betraying your faith. You were just trying to heal yourself. And I'm telling you, it's it's better, it's more when you become a healed version of yourself, spiritual growth becomes easier. It becomes easier to tap into that energy. Whatever you practices you're doing, chanting, meditation, prayer, it becomes easier when you are a healed version of yourself. When you're no longer chronically depressed, chronically anxious, chronically angry, chronically grieving, when you have done all that work on yourself, when you feel free and more relaxed and more free mentally and emotionally, then doing those spiritual practices become easier. And then when you do them, you can get more benefit from them. So please allow yourself to heal, even if it feels like betrayal at first, and rebuild yourself slowly, one step at a time. It might seem like there is a huge mountain that you have to climb. So don't worry about all the things that you have to. Just take one step every day. So losing trust in abusive leaders is not the same as losing faith. When you leave your community, you will be told directly, indirectly, subtly, overtly that now you are losing God because you lost this community, because you lost me, you lost your leader. It's not true. God's love, your relationship with God, is not enslaved to a given, to a particular leader, particular congregation, particular community, particular building, or a particular group. It's your personal relationship, and you can reclaim it whenever you want to.
Why can practices such as prayer, worship, or reading sacred texts become emotional triggers after spiritual abuse? And how can survivors begin to heal those responses?
Um, Trauma, when happens on any level, the time when the trauma happened, everything that was there in this environment, people, place, sounds, symbol, things, festivals, seasons, smells, weather, climate, everything gets stored in your memory along with the trauma memories. Now, when even if you leave that atmosphere completely, if you come across same one of these symbols from that environment, that symbol could be a person, place, thing, a situation, a festival, as I said, a climate, even a smell, a space, a building, anything, it can remind you of the feeling that you felt at that time because of the trauma that you were going through. It goes for all kinds of trauma. It's called as classical conditioning or associative learning. Your brain has associated traumatic memories along with those symbols. So these symbols now become triggers. For example, you were shamed into doing the prayer. You were shamed on regular basis that you don't pray enough, so now go and do prayer. So now your brain has associated prayer with shame. Now even if nobody is shaming you, you want to pray by your own will, suddenly that feeling of shame will come up and you would not want to pray. You might force yourself out of fear of some divine retribution, you might pray, but that feeling of shame will always be there, and it will keep on making you uncomfortable. That's not moral failure, that's not spiritual failure, that's trauma response, and it can be healed with the help of anyone that can help you heal that trauma. There are so many trauma therapies. If you heal that trauma, the trigger will be separated from these symbols, and you can now again pray without feeling triggered. Similarly, if somebody was abused or harmed using scriptures, and now you pick up your scripture, pick up your book, and try to read, a sense of fear would come up. You don't exactly remember what happened, but your body remembers last time when you were reading it, you were afraid of something, or you were afraid of someone, or you were ashamed of something. If worship has been regularly used to control you because of your gender, let's say in some communities there are specific duties for women that they have to do because the Bible says so, or the Bhagavad Gita says so, or the Quran says so, whatever the although scriptures never say, they never endorse, but spiritual abusers use these scriptures to manipulate women into thinking that no matter what, you have to do this because the scripture says. Now if you're trying to read scripture, you might suddenly, now nobody is there to control you, manipulate you using those scriptures. So you're trying to read scriptures, and suddenly you have this intense feeling of anger inside you because your body remembers being mistreated, for being hurt, for being harmed using that scripture. At some point you might not remember the exact incident, you might or might not, but body always remembers, body keeps the score. So the moment you pick up a your scripture, you feel sudden anger inside you, and you don't want to continue reading that. So this is how, because of classical conditioning, because of associated learning, these symbols, these spiritual symbols, get associated with the traumatic memories. So trauma memories. So your body reacts the moment it sees or perceives any of these symbols in your environment. So the signs could be anxiety during prayers, panic during worship, emotional flooding while reading scriptures. These are some of the signs. There can be other signs also. You are trying to do any ritual related to your spiritual practices, and suddenly you have some uncomfortable feeling inside. It's not because you are a sinful person. It's not because you failed morally or you failed spiritually. It's because you were traumatized using these symbols. So, because of trauma, because how trauma changes your brain, how trauma affects your nervous system. The fear is not there, the danger is not there, but your brain wiring is still firing the same way. still responding in the same way. So, healing approaches can be slow exposure. Gradually expose yourself again to spiritual practices that make you feel safe. Do not push yourself, do not force yourself to do things that re traumatize you. Find some other ways of serving God that don't feel you traumatized, and do very gradually. Do not try to uh, overperform like you used to before when you were in the controlling environment. God does not want you to overperform to while abandoning yourself. It's important to do something to create a connection with someone. So do whatever you feel like, whatever you can do comfortably without abandoning yourself. So do slow exposure. Try to find safe spiritual environments when nobody is forcing you, nobody is shaming you, judging you, forcing you, forcing you into doing something in the name of God. And try to get some trauma informed support. Try to be in touch with someone who is trauma informed, who can help you go ahead on this path with the trauma informed approaches that do not re traumatize. So, the trigger that we have discussed, it's not a proof, once again, I would say, it's not a proof of weak faith. It's evidence of injury. It's a proof that you were harmed psychologically, emotionally, and that's why this response, this you not wanting to do the same ritual that you enjoyed one point is not your moral failure. It's not sign of your weak faith. It's a sign that you have been harmed, and healing can help you have a better relationship with God.
What does it mean to love God without fear, shame, or trauma, and how can survivors rebuild a healthy spiritual connection?
So fear, it's not always bad. Fear can be good also. Fear makes us aware. It alarms us so that we can keep ourselves safe from the dangerous things, from animals, from any kind of danger around us. But fear can be harmful also when it causes low self-worth. If
Hmm.
someone continuously uses fear to control you, to coerce you, to manipulate you, it can cause low self-worth, as it happens in spiritually abusive environment, in domestic abuse cases, where in children who are going to childhood abuse in abusive families, fear is continuously used by toxic parents, toxic spouses, toxic spiritual leaders to keep the vulnerable under control. When fear is used in that way, it leads to low self worth. If I'm always afraid, how can I be proud of myself? How can I be believe in myself? How can I feel confident in myself? Because I'm always afraid, and sometimes it is practically, it is intentionally engineered around vulnerable people to keep them under control. The characteristics of such environment would be um, of the environment where the spirituality is rooted in connection and not in fear. That environment will have freedom rather than force. Any spiritually healthy environment, whether we are talking about a group, a leader, a friend who is into spirituality, how do we know that they are safe? This group is Whether this group is safe or not, whether this leader is safe or not, my friend is safe or not, they would let you choose how you want to go ahead in your spiritual life. They will not coerce you into doing things you are not comfortable or you are not sure or you are not ready for. They will not coerce you to anything. There will be more trust than terror. You will be doing things for God because you trust in the process. You would internally feel that if I approach uh, with these practices in spirituality, they would be benefiting me, and you wouldn't be doing these out of fear of displeasing God. In an environment where there is no fear, no shame, or no trauma, where there is healthy spirituality, your relationship with God will be the driving force behind everything that you do rather than performance. You would be more focused on your relationship with God and not on how you are performing, how your performance looks on the outside. So there will be grace rather than perfectionism. You will not strive for perfection because you don't have to please anyone in that environment. So ask yourself this question. If fear, if fear disappears completely from my life, what would my relationship with God look like? The answer to this
Mm,
question is the actual healthy relationship uh, that's how the actual healthy relationship with God looks like. In fact, in any relationship, love will grow best when there is safety. You cannot have a
mm,
healthy relationship anyone. What to say of God? When the love is not there, but the fear is there. Fear can
mm,
make you obey. It can make you perform. It can make you obey. It can make you stay even, but it cannot make you fall in true love with anyone, not even God. So love will grow only in that place where there is no fear. Fear and love don't exist together. If they seem to exist together in any relationship, that's more of a trauma bond and not the love.
How can faith communities better support women by promoting dignity, equality, and accountability while remaining true to their spiritual values?
So any spiritual community would be called as healthier on the spectrum if it has transparency, if it has humility, if it provides safety, compassion, and justice. So these are the markers of a comparatively healthier spiritual community. There will be transparency. Everybody would have the same level of information. The information will not be curated or filtered through leaders before going to the followers.
Mm,
There will be humility. People will stay inside it. The felt safety that is felt inside the body, members would feel that. The community members will have compassion in general for every living being around them, not just the community members, not just the leaders who are in high position, not just the members who are of the same faith or same gender. The compassion would be there. It would be promoted inside such communities that you should have compassion for everyone, irrespective of their religion, of their gender, of their caste, the community. Have a We use this word Vasudeva Kutumbakam in Vedic literature, that this entire world is Vasudev's home, Vasudev's family. We all are a family. That's how we should think. Not just I have a lot of compassion for my community members, my cult members. But if somebody else outside of my cult is dying, I will not even look at them, even if that person is my family member, just because they don't belong to my cult. So I will not care for them. My compassion is limited to these people. That's not compassion. That's selective compassion. Healthy communities have compassion for every living being around them, and they would try to follow this as much as they can. Justice could be for everyone, not just for the leaders who are holding high position in the community, but also for the vulnerable, for women, for children, for weak people who are not in leadership position. If somebody is going through someone, people will come and support them and try to get them justice if something wrong happens to them inside the community. So this is how a healthy community uh, looks like. And if somebody wants to better support women while remaining true to their spiritual values, why do we even need to mention this thing that supporting women while remaining true to their spiritual values? Spiritual integrity and gender equality are not enemies, like a lot of people would feel and say. I remember being told in my spiritual community during my first few days that these feministic movements are destroying the Vedic culture in India, because the one who says has no idea of what feminism is. Feminism is not meant for destroying men or taking away their rights. It's giving women rights too. That's what feminism
mm,
is. But someone who does not need, or someone who's enjoying oppressing women, or someone who's enjoying a life where they have this patriarchal mindset and they're enjoying all the rights that patriarchy gives them. And if feminism comes, then those rights will be taken away. So they cannot do the sense enjoyment as much as they are doing at this present moment. So of course they would feel uncomfortable. But can't they see? Their discomfort, their little bit of discomfort can grant someone so many rights. They can be safe. Someone's safety is obviously much more important than your little discomfort, which isn't even discomfort, it's just your entitlement will be taken away. You and your wife both are tired, both are sick, but she has to cook because she is woman. Although you both are earning, that's entitlement. But see, patriarchy allows that. Feminism won't allow that. So people have to understand that spiritual integrity and gender equality are not enemies. We, according to Vedic scriptures, we all are souls. We all are part and parcel of this of super soul, God. We are His eternal servant. We are not each other's servant. We are His eternal servant. We are His part and parcel, and we are not these bodies. Most importantly, we are not these bodies. I know so many Vedic preachers who would keep on saying in their lectures, "We are not these bodies. We are souls. We are not these bodies. Let's not identify ourselves with these bodies." But the moment a woman comes up in the discussion, suddenly she's a body, just because she has the female body. So we need to do some practical changes. There has to be accountability for leaders. If a leader says, does something that's wrong, that's not in line with the scripture, that that does not has the core idea of love, justice, humility, compassion for every human being, irrespective of their gender, irrespective of their religion, their caste, their community, their social status, their financial status, their status inside the community. They should be held accountable if these leaders do something that that does the bias. So they should have equal approach for everyone, irrespective of their identification. There should be an accountability mechanism for leaders. The leaders should not be untouched, unquestionable. If they do something wrong, people should have right to question that in their community. Then there should be trauma-informed education. When I say trauma-informed education, especially the preachers, they should have trauma-informed education. They should know how to speak to someone so that it does not cause them any harm. Someone who is already carrying a trauma or who is in difficult situation, talk to them in a way that helps them and not causes further damage, especially if you are talking to a woman. I would, I have come across so many women who have told me that their own church leader or community leader or spiritual leader, whatever religion they are coming from, they have directly told them to tolerate if there is abuse in the family, not go for divorce. Divorce is ungodly, is sinful, so keep tolerating whatever is going in your marriage. So it's not a trauma informed conversation. Telling someone to keep tolerating because they belong to a certain gender. Or if someone, even if a man gets mistreated by another man and that perpetrator holds a high position in the community, is a leader, the one who the victim is told to tolerate because that person holds a high position and they can do no wrong. So here, the person, there was a biased decision on the basis of the position these men hold in this given community. So the trauma-informed education should be given to the leaders so that they can teach and preach in a way that does not harm anyone, irrespective of their gender, social position, economic position, financial status, anything, and can can be compassionate to everyone in the same way. Women's voices should be included. If a woman wants to speak up against what is happening to her, she should be allowed to speak. I will cite an example. So in my community, there is a book. There is a book which has been specifically written. It's a very thin book which has been specifically written for married people who are into devotion, so that they can have a good family life. This book has specifically mentioned in one of the last pages that if a woman is going through a problem in sexual relationship with her husband, she must not share that with anyone. What if she's being abused? What if she's going through some trauma? Why is she not allowed in? And in that book, it has been specifically written for teaching men and women who are in married life how to have a happy, good married life, how to have a good rest life. And that's what the one of the teachings is that if you are facing a problem, if you're going through someone, you must not share it with anyone. Anybody who is going through anything is allowed to share their problem, at least with their friend, at least with my female friends. I'm allowed to share whatever I want to share. There should not be any teaching side. So it's shaming, it's shutting the victim down. If you're going through someone, don't talk to anyone about that. Will that bring harmony in the family? That will only cause more problem. That will enable the perpetrator. That will silence the woman. And this is not healthy teaching. That's not trauma informed education. That's very harmful and that can be very dangerous. Not all, uh, not in all domestic abuse cases women are killed, but in some domestic abuse cases women go crazy. They are get institutionalized or they become so destabilized, they become horrible mothers to their children. So domestic
Mm,
abuse should not be justified. I'm repeatedly mentioning this point because it is happening a lot in toxic communities. Domestic abuse is just people turn a blind eye to domestic abuse. Women should tolerate that. And that's why I needed to include this chapter in my book. And that's why I needed to do a podcast on it. And also encourage questioning, not only in others, but in yourself. Everybody should allow to have questions. Never tell people that it's sinful or it's less godly to have questions in your mind. Having questions allows you to have perspective, and especially in future if you're going to preach. If you have answers, if I have answers to all the questions that I have today, tomorrow I am preaching. If somebody asks me a question, I will not need to make them feel embarrassed for having those questions. I will not need to make them feel awkward for them asking me questions. I will have an answer and I will answer them. And this is what happens. This is how this toxicity is transferred from generation to generation. Let's say if I enter a community, I ask a question, and I was made to feel ashamed of myself for having that question. Now, when I become preacher, if somebody asks me the same question, I'm going to do the same thing to them. I will make them feel ashamed, and then they will do the same thing. So why not allow people to answer? There has to be some answer to the questions that they have. So encourage questions and also whether you are a leader, whether you are a member listening to this podcast, if you have any questions, go ahead and answer that. If nobody's answering that in your community, try to find it from someone somewhere else. Finding finding answer to your question doesn't make you less spiritual. No, none of the scriptures said that you shouldn't have questions. It's okay to have questions. It's okay to discuss them. It will enhance your knowledge. It will not make you less godly. A healthier faith community protects the vulnerable rather than protecting power. Always remember that. If something happens in the community and everybody is focused on protecting the leader, it's not a healthy and safe space for people who are trying to bring the impact. If something happens to the vulnerable, people should have sympathy directed to the person who has suffered, not to the one who has caused the suffering because they hold a high position in the community.
Lastly, what message would you share with women who are struggling to reconcile their faith with painful experiences they endured within religious or spiritual environments?
Women who are struggling to reconcile their faith with their experiences, I understand that it could be very difficult. In the initial phases of healing, it might feel that you have lost God. A lot of people, almost all of the people who go through spiritual abuse, when they leave their spiritually abusive environment, whether their family or their community, they feel that they have lost God. Because, as I said in one of the previous responses, separate God from these people, first of all. It's very important. It was not God who was doing this to you, it was people. And these people are not God. Then I want you to know that you are not alone. There are so many people who have been through, who are still going through, who may not be even aware that this has happened. them or they're going through this. Please know that your pain deserves to be acknowledged. Abuse is not a proof of weak faith. You were abused because an abusive person used their free will for their self-gratification to nourish their ego or to get something for themselves. It's not a sign of your weak faith. Questions are not failure. If you have questions or doubts about something, a teaching or a leader or a person or something that's happening in your community or family, it's not because you are spiritually failing. Questions are just questions because you're capable of thinking, you're capable of critical thinking. That's why you have these questions. If they are not able to answer it, it's their incompetence, it's not their failure. Healing is not rebellion. In fact, it's opposite, as I stated earlier. When you become healed version of yourself, it would be easier for you to achieve what you're trying to achieve from your spiritual practice, your spiritual growth. It would be easier. So healing will facilitate your spiritual growth. Spiritual abusers would always want you to think that your healing is taking you away from God, away from spirituality. That is not. Your voice matters. If something happens, share it with someone trustworthy who would validate, who would listen without judgment, who will not betray your faith. Share it with someone. If you have no one, you can post anonymously on support groups on social media and see if there are other people also who have been through the same thing. If you can afford, go to a psychologist, a therapist, a counselor, and share your problems with them. You feel validated there. It's very important if you have been through emotional and psychological abuse, it's very important to find someone who makes you believe in yourself, who does not make you feel that you are crazy for having these thoughts or feelings or these symptoms. A therapist would be the best one, but if you can't afford, talk to a trusted friend. If you don't have a trusted friend, go anonymously on private support groups, and try to talk to strangers there who have been through what you have been. Because your story matters, your sufferings matter, and you deserve to heal. And please stop asking what's wrong with me and start asking yourself what happened with me because of which I am behaving or feeling or thinking like this, because of which I have become like this. So it will shift the blame from you, as it is always in spiritually harmful environments. Anyone who suffers, they are made to believe that it's their fault because they are suffering. We need to break that pattern now. So we have to stop asking what is wrong with me and start asking what happened to me. So then the deepest spiritual healing will start to happen. So path back to faith is not about becoming more obedient. It's about becoming more honest, more whole, and more deeply connected to the truth and connected to your real self.
Well, thank you so much for your time.